so. I think NATO's making a very foolish mistake, and I've long said that, I wonder whether or not NATO would ever be there for us. So this was a great test, because we don't need them, but they should have been there when we had the B-2 bombers bomb the nuclear potential. I call it the nuclear.
Were Donald Trump to withdraw from NATO, it would be a geopolitical earthquake. It would dismantle the alliance that has, in many respects, anchored the Western world since NATO was created in the dark years after World War II. And it's not just a military alliance. It is, in many respects, a political alliance, an institution that reflects common interests and common values and a common commitment to liberal democracy. And the fact that NATO has survived since the end of the Cold War, despite the collapse of the Soviet Union, is a testament to the degree to which this was not just a marriage of convenience, it was something much deeper. So I do think that were the Trump administration to withdraw from NATO, it would change the world. It would, in some ways, push the world toward a geopolitical jungle in which Europe would be on its own, the United States would be on its own. In some ways, it would be a return to the much more chaotic, anarchic landscape that existed before NATO was formed in 1949. Trump, going way back, has voiced regrets about not just NATO, but the alliances that the United States has in Europe and in East Asia. And I think that he feels, not without some justification, that allies free ride on the United States, that they don't spend enough of their own money defending themselves. They take advantage of American readiness to spend more on defense and to provide a protective umbrella. So there's a through line here in Trump's comments, but I do think that Trump is not in a good place in Iran. This war is going on longer than he expected. It is causing more damage to the international economy than he expected. And so he's frustrated that allies in Asia and in Europe, which depend more on Persian Gulf energy than the United States does, why aren't they showing up to the party? Why aren't they participating in an effort to open the Strait of Hormuz? So I think these new comments are brought to a head by his frustration over the absence of allies in this particular war in Iran.
One thing we're very disappointed, I'll say it publicly, we're very disappointed with NATO because NATO has done absolutely nothing. And I've always said, 25 years ago, I mean, I was somebody that wasn't a politician, but I was always involved in politics and I understood politics. I said 25 years ago that NATO's a paper tiger, but more importantly, that we'll come to their rescue, but they will never come to ours.
He could begin to pack up, to take American troops and move them out of Germany and move them out of the United Kingdom and move them out of Poland. And this, in some sense, would be a sign to the Europeans that the days of the United States deploying forces in Europe to help protect you against external threats, Russia in particular, those days are coming to an end. Would he face resistance? For sure. NATO has strong support in Congress, not just among Democrats, but among Republicans as well. NATO enjoys strong support among the US public. So there he would receive pushback. But at least from my knowledge, there is no legal or political lever that Congress, the House, the Senate, the Pentagon could use to stop Trump from beginning to withdraw US troops from NATO. We've been here before, and the case that is a historical precedent comes from 1793, believe it or not. In 1778, the United States formed an alliance with France to help the U.S. in the Revolutionary War, and the French came across the Atlantic, and they helped turn the war around. They helped the United States break away from Britain. In 1793, war breaks out again between France and Britain, and France asks George Washington for help. And George Washington basically says, good night and good luck, you're on your own. He issues what was called the Proclamation of Neutrality. And some in the political circles said that you can't do that, Mr. President. You don't have the constitutional right to withdraw from a treaty because the Constitution says treaties require 2/3 of the Senate's consent. Well, that issue has never been resolved. Presidents have, since George Washington, reneged on treaties that were ratified by the Senate. So the bottom line here is that if Trump wants to withdraw from NATO, he can do so. And even if there were ambiguity about the legality of doing so, as the commander-in-chief, he could order American troops to withdraw from Europe, which in effect would mean the end of the transatlantic alliance. I think if you're an American ally, whether it's Germany or Britain or South Korea or Japan, you have to take seriously the pronouncement of an American president that I'm reconsidering alliances. I think I might contemplate the idea of withdrawal. You have to take that seriously, have to have plan B. You have to question whether the United States is no longer the reliable ally that it has been for so many decades. That having been said, I do not expect Trump to withdraw from NATO. And that's because the United States gets lots of benefits from the alliance. Some of those missions that are being flown over Iran right now are taking off from bases that are in NATO, the UK, for example.
And then in the case of NATO, they don't want to help us defend the strait, and they're the ones that need it. But now they're getting much nicer because they're seeing my attitude. They're getting much nicer. But it's, as far as I'm concerned, it's too late. You know, UK wants to send aircraft carriers now. And I said, I want the aircraft carriers before the war. I don't want them after the war is won.
If there are parties out there that are smiling, that are enjoying this moment, it's the adversaries of the West. It's Russia, it's China, because they would be very happy were NATO to be dismantled. They would be very happy if the United States withdrew its protective umbrella from South Korea and Japan. They like it when the West is divided. And as a consequence, this is in some ways a gift to the adversaries of the United States and its allies, Russia and China. And that's yet another reason that my best guess is that this is a threat upon which Donald Trump is not going to act. So I can say with reasonable confidence that NATO will still be a going concern. Its lights will be on. American troops will be in Europe by the time Trump leaves office. But, and that's an important but, Trump is unpredictable. And so when I say with reasonable confidence, it is part confidence and part prayer.